I was still trying to figure out how to start the tractor when a black SUV with dark tinted windows came speeding down the dirt road leading to my ranch. It wasn't a friendly neighbor coming to say hello. The vehicle jerked to a stop in front of my porch and the door slammed open so hard it echoed through the trees. A woman in a crisp navy blazer stepped out like she was about to conduct a hostile corporate takeover. Her heels crunched on the gravel as she marched toward me, a thick binder clutched to her chest like it held the secrets of the universe. "Are you the new owner of this ranch?" she barked. "Yes, ma'am," I said slowly, wiping my hands on my jeans. "I just inherited it last week. My uncle passed." She didn't blink. "I'm Marlene Kendrick, president of the Birch Hollow Homeowners Association. This property is in violation of at least 8 HOA regulations. And since your late uncle never paid dues, you now owe the HOA $14,870.63 plus interest." I stared at her. "I'm sorry, what?" She snapped open the binder and jabbed a finger at a page. "Your barn is painted the wrong color. There's a rooster on the property against noise regulations. You've got unregistered livestock and unapproved fence, and that mailbox is not HOA compliant. Also, there are 3 unpaid fines dating back 6 years. That's now your responsibility." I laughed, thinking it was a joke. "This isn't an HOA neighborhood. This is open ranch land." Her eyes glinted. "Oh, but it was annexed into Birch Hollow HOA boundaries in 2017. Your uncle refused to sign the agreement, but the vote passed anyway. You've inherited all his violations." I was stunned. "This isn't even a neighborhood. I don't see a single house in any direction." "You're within jurisdiction," she snapped. "So, pay up or face legal action." And with that, she handed me a violation packet, turned on her heels, and drove off in a storm of dust and expensive perfume. I stood there with a manila folder in my hands, completely dumbfounded. A few horses whinnied in the distance. I had inherited a 40-acre piece of quiet land, a family legacy, and apparently a $15,000 HOA debt I never agreed to. But what really shook me wasn't just the absurd bill. It was the final paper in the folder, a notice warning that if the balance wasn't paid in full within 30 days, the HOA had the legal right to file a lien against my ranch. And I wasn't even sure I believed they had the right to do any of this. Now I needed answers. It all started just a month before, when I got a call from my uncle's attorney, Mr. Cavell. I didn't know much about Uncle Hank. He was my mom's older brother, the family black sheep who left city life behind decades ago to live off-grid. We didn't visit often, but I remembered feeding goats with him once when I was 9. He wore overalls and no shoes, and he told stories about coyotes sneaking through fences at night. Mr. Cavell said Uncle Hank had passed peacefully in his sleep. He left me the entire ranch in his will. It was a shock. I was a school teacher in San Antonio, recently divorced and unsure of what the future looked like. I took it as a sign, a chance to start fresh. So, I packed up my few belongings, quit my job, and headed out to the ranch with nothing but optimism. 2 duffel bags, and a beat-up Silverado. When I first arrived, the place was quiet and beautiful. The long driveway curved through golden fields and under arching oaks. The house was old but sturdy. The barn was red, faded, but still standing. A few horses roamed freely, and a pair of goats followed me around like puppies. It didn't feel like a place bound by rules. Felt like freedom. I spent the first few days settling in, clearing cobwebs, organizing the pantry, patching up a broken window. I met old Mr. Landon, the neighbor from half a mile down the road, who brought me a basket of fresh eggs and a jar of apple butter. He didn't mention an HOA. Everything seemed peaceful until Marlene showed up. I dug into the folder she'd handed me. The pages were filled with dense legal jargon and ridiculous allegations. One of the supposed violations listed was livestock manure visible from the street. I didn't even have a visible street. There was no one else on this stretch of land for miles. I called the number listed on the HOA letterhead. A robotic voicemail answered. "You have reached the Birch Hollow HOA compliance hotline. Leave a message after the tone." I left one, then another. Then I sent an email. No response. I started researching HOAs. I found horror stories, people who'd lost their homes over weeds, mailboxes, or minor fines that ballooned into thousands. Some even said HOA boards acted like mini dictatorships, especially when they thought they could get away with it. So I drove into town to speak with the local records office. That's when things got murky. The woman behind the counter, Diane, looked up the parcel. Technically, she said, squinting at her screen, you're not part of any HOA. My heart skipped. But this woman said. She waved her hand. They passed some kind of annexation vote a few years ago. Yes, but it was contested. Your uncle filed multiple objections. He never signed anything. There was no formal incorporation with this land. So, they're bluffing? I asked. Diane hesitated. Maybe, but some HOAs try to enforce things anyway. They'll threaten liens, take you to small claims court, scare you into compliance. If they have a slick lawyer, it could get messy. Back at the ranch, I sat on the porch with a notebook and pen trying to make sense of what to do next. I needed legal help. I needed proof. I needed someone who could outmaneuver Marlene and her clipboard tyrants. And that's when I remembered Mr. Cavill, Uncle Hank's lawyer. I called his office. Can you tell me anything about this supposed HOA problem? There was a pause on the line. Then he said, you better come down here. There's something I think you should see. The next morning, I drove back into town and walked into Cavill and Rowe Legal Services. He greeted me with a kind smile and led me into a dusty back office. He pulled a large cardboard box from a cabinet. Your uncle was stubborn, he said, opening the box. He kept everything, including these. He handed me a folder marked Birch Hollow HOA, not legal. Inside were copies of letters Hank had written, emails from the county commissioner, and documents showing that Hank had never agreed to join the HOA. In fact, he'd actively fought against it. He had even written a formal letter stating that his property could not legally be included under HOA jurisdiction. Signed by 2 different attorneys and notarized. This was gold. I felt a glimmer of hope. Can I take copies? I asked. Cavill nodded. Absolutely. But I'd be careful. If this HOA president is playing dirty, she may not back down quietly. Just as I walked out with the folder tucked under my arm, ready to fight back, I got home to find an orange notice stapled to the barn door. Final warning, noncompliance notice. This property may be subject to forcible lien and seizure. What did that mean? Was the HOA really going to take my land? I stood frozen, the wind howling through the trees behind me, clutching a folder of truth and facing a storm I never saw coming.